So today we have a company introduction webinar for the company called My Better Batch. And so the company founder and CEO, Lindsay Hancock. And it's a very interesting, very special company. So it's not that small company anymore. I guess it's still smaller than some others. But last year when we did such webinar, that was a bona fide startup. So since then, many things have happened. And in fact, that's a good sign, because normally if the company is sort of stagnant, then when the company participates again in the next semester, there is no need to re-record the company webinar because everything we said half a year ago still applies. Well, My Better Batch is developing and growing and progressing quickly. And so I guess I wasn't surprised, but when I asked Lindsay, so do we need to record a new webinar? She said, well, yeah, enough has happened that we need a new webinar. So I take that as a very good sign for the company. And I'm actually eager to hear what has changed, because we did do the webinar last spring, if I remember correctly, but then we had a larger meeting in the summer, in the middle of the summer, with Lindsay and then another CEO of another company that participated in Xculture. So I learned a lot more about the company in that meeting, actually in this very room. And so apparently even more has happened since then. So that's an interesting development. And so the reason I like this company so much, there are two reasons why I'm happy to see the company in Xculture. So one, what Lindsay is going through now is what many of you Xculture students will be going through in the coming years. So most of you are either MBA students or business students. And in our surveys, when we ask you what you want to do upon graduation, most of you say that you want to start your business one day. And while we do have some gigantic companies in Xculture this semester, like, for example, Moss Burger, YKK, these are big, almost monopolistic companies in their regions, at least in their industries. For most of you, it will be years, decades, and maybe even never that you will be in charge of a company of that kind of size. Whereas a smaller company like My Better Batch, most of you will at some point manage as founders or hired managers. And so the challenges that My Better Batch is going through, or the types of challenges the company faces, these will be the challenges you will face. And so I do know that working on a challenge from a company like My Better Batch is much more proximal for your own career. And whatever you learn during this project will prepare you for your own business endeavors within just a few short years. So second, and that's also kind of interesting and also to some point almost problematic. So My Better Batch broke our record. So it's like 60% of the teams chose My Better Batch last semester. And that was somewhat problematic because we had a total of, I think, 12 clients last semester. And I had a hard time explaining to the other companies, some of them big international names, why this tiny startup from Greensboro has 600 teams working on their challenge, or 550. And you, such a big name, international known company, you have only 55 teams. So this time it's the same story. So My Better Batch again has close to half of all of the teams. Moss Burger is another one that is extremely popular. And so the problem is that the remaining clients have many fewer teams. And so in a way, I hope it will not offend the company founder, but in a way, I'm telling you students, if you choose other clients, not only I will have a more balanced distribution, but you will also have an easier time winning the competition, because we have a winner in each company category. And so if you go with My Better Batch, being such a great and interesting and exciting company, and I know how much you like it and want to work on it, but you will have a lot of competition. Choose somebody else and you will have less competition. So here I'm not really advocating switching the company, but in a way I am, because as a project manager, I want to see a more normal distribution of teams across the companies. But at the very least, I will say that, yes, I take that again as a very, very good sign for My Better Batch. We know that this popularity contest also essentially represents how much teams believe in the company, how much future they see for the company. And the fact that so many teams choose My Better Batch tells me that, yes, the students probably think that there is a bright, big future ahead of the company. So I guess that's, in a way, it's a market sentiment survey, so that definitely is a good sign. But anyway, with this long introduction, so I'm going to turn the microphone to Lindsay Hancock, the founder and the CEO of the company, and ask to tell us a little bit more about the company, the history, the product, And then students, as you have your questions, you can put them in the chat room. I and Yukta will probably monitor the chat and we will ask those questions. Or don't be a stranger, don't be afraid, unmute your microphone, raise your hand, and we'll engage in a discussion. So, Lindsay.
All right. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You are. Okay. And let me just flip it over here to slideshow. You're able to see the full screen? You don't see the...
Yes, the full screen, the right view, yes.
Okay. All right, perfect. All right. Well, good morning. Thank you. Thank you for joining us this morning. I am really happy to be participating in X Culture again. It was a really fun time the last time we did this. And so I'm eager to give an update. I'm going to give more of a little bit of background on the company, and then I'll give a little update on progress, and then we can talk through what this year's project will look like, because it's a little bit different than the last time we did this. So without further ado, I will just introduce myself real quick. So I've spent my career about 20 years all in food. Got my start in this crazy food business working for a retailer that's based here in Greensboro, and then went on to be part of a startup that sold commodity nuts, trail mixes, confections. I was employee number one of that company, and the way I describe it is the only one dumb enough to join our founder when we had no products, we had no space, we had no customers. But that proved to turn out very well. So about 10 years later, in 2019, we sold that company to Kind Snacks. So some of you might know Kind Bar, which is distributed internationally. So sold that to Kind, worked for Kind for a couple of years, was part of their leadership team, ran a portion of sales for Kind, and learned a lot about myself through that time. One being that I am not really a big company person. I am a smaller, more entrepreneurial person. This was a super valuable lesson to me and certainly helped guide my next move. So in 2021, I chose to leave Kind. I've done some consulting since then with some smaller food brands, helping them gain distribution, work on operations, innovate new products. But ultimately, this has led to founding my own company, which is My Better Batch, and we will talk more about that. So real quick, I'll jump in and tell you just a little bit about me. I graduated from UNC Greensboro. So
which is our university. So right here, yes.
That's right. So where Dr. Taurus is currently sitting, I graduated with a degree in exercise and sports science. So my goal was to go into sports management, but I never pursued that field. You all are one step ahead of me because you've chosen a career or chosen a degree in business. My business knowledge and understanding has been built entirely on experience and a ton of mistakes. So I live in Central North Carolina, Kernersville, North Carolina, which is outside of Greensboro. I'm really proud of what I've accomplished over the last 20 years in my career, but I am most proud of the fact that I have two awesome boys. They are 16, almost 17 tomorrow, and 12 now. That is outdated. But Owen and Jackson, and they would kill me if they knew that their picture was in this presentation. So, all right, let's move right on. So we chose to do this last time too. I want to do a social experiment, and there is kind of a prize at the end of this. So with so many of you participating in this project, it would be great if you all could head over to my social media platform. So it's at My Better Batch. I want to see what the power of a collective group like this has on a small business like mine. So I want you to go over to my Instagram account, which is at My Better Batch. And I kicked off all of these social media platforms about a year prior to launching the brand. My goal was to attempt to build a group of people that were interested in cookies. So that way, when I did have a brand, I could very easily start talking to that group of people. But we are finally beginning to build some momentum on those social media platforms. And so right now, while I was focused on very generic content on these platforms, now I use these platforms as a way to show those followers and subscribers how to use my My Better Batch to make all kinds of seasonal fun cookies. For instance, right now we're focused on fall flavors and how to use the cookie mixes to make these cookies. So what I want you to do over on Instagram, and you can do it now or you can do it later, but I want you to make sure you're following us, number one. Number two, I want you to pick a video. In the comments of that video, I want you to write X culture in your location. So for me, it would be X culture from Kernersville, North Carolina, USA. So what I'm going to do is I am going to choose one of you to receive a variety pack of all 4 of our cookie mixes, and that will be shipped to you in December. So I encourage you to go over there. We did this the last time too. I pointed people to our YouTube channel, and it was an overwhelming response. So hopefully you can help me out again and do that, and then one of you will be lucky enough to win some cookie mix.
And I'm telling you, I already put X Culture Greensboro under one of the videos because I did get samples of, I think it was 4 different cookie
Yeah.
mixes. And so
Yeah.
I gave out 2 of those, I believe, to people here in the office, but I kept 1 or 2 of them at home. And they're easy to prepare and they're tasty. And so I'm actually trying to win again. So
All right. Well, I'll tell you just a little bit of background on my story. So, as a busy single mom working full time, I was pre-COVID, I was on 120 flights a year, and I was often faced with a question similar to this one. Mom, I need to take cookies into my class party. What are you going to make? And here are the questions that immediately flooded my mind. How on earth am I going to do this? When am I going to be able to find time to go to the grocery store? I wonder if I can get away with buying something in the grocery store. And then I thought to myself, nope, all the other moms are going to be making something. I don't want to be that mom who takes a shortcut. Or maybe I could just head over to the grocery store aisle and pick up a box of something and call it my own. But I always found myself saying, no, I can't do that because none of that stuff really tastes homemade. Somebody was going to know that I took a shortcut. And that is when complete mom guilt set in for me. So this is why I decided to start My Better Batch, because I wanted to offer a shortcut to busy people, not just moms, but busy people that they could feel good about taking. I wanted to offer a cookie mix that tasted so good, no one would ever know that it came from a box. So I'll tell you a little bit about the competition in this category. So when you go into the grocery store in the US, here is what you will find. You're going to find a relatively small section of cookie mixes in comparison to some of the other categories in the aisle, like brownies and cakes. You are going to find cookies merchandised in 2 areas. One is what I call the mainline section, and one is what I call the attribute specific section. And when I talk about attribute specific, what I'm talking about is offerings like keto, gluten-free, paleo. They are the nutritional attributes that a lot of these companies are building brands around. So in this mainline set, you are going to find legacy brands like Betty Crocker and Pillsbury and Duncan Hines. The packaging in this section is pretty flimsy. It doesn't stand up on the shelf, but these brands have been around forever and customers know them and they trust them. These products, to me, do not taste homemade. Now, during the time where I was developing all of these recipes, I am pretty sure that I made everything that you see on this shelf to be able to test it. But
Lindsay,
there is a just
can I ask you, do you know if these brands appear also outside of the United States? Are they sold internationally?
Yes, several of them are, especially those legacy brands, Betty Crocker, Pillsbury,
Uh-huh.
and Duncan Hines.
Okay.
Yeah, probably not as much the attribute specific, so some of those smaller brands, but definitely the larger ones.
Okay.
Yep. None of them to me tasted homemade. And ultimately, the product that I wanted to create and I wanted to be able to compete with, I wanted, like I said, homemade taste was something that was extremely important to me. So I kind of built this little grid. I'm a firm believer that in order to build a brand, you must really understand what your competition looks like and how you're going to set yourself apart on the shelf. What's interesting about selling a food product into the grocery store is that in order for me to go onto the shelf, something else must come off. And so I have to be able to explain to retail buyers why My Better Batch belongs on the shelf. So being differentiated is super important. So there's a few things, like I said, that are important to me. Having a clean label, so products that are able to be sold in the natural channel, like Whole Foods and Sprouts here in the US, and ingredients that would be considered what I consider dirty, what you see down at the bottom there, is items that have artificial flavor in them, red dye number 40, artificial colors like that, hydrogenated oils. I also wanted to have a homemade taste, like I keep saying. And I know that sounds silly, but there is something very distinct about buying something that is a mix and preparing it. And when you put that against a homemade cookie mix, you really can taste a difference. And I wanted to make sure that our product you couldn't taste a difference. So clean label, like I said, and homemade taste. And you can see where I wanted My Better Batch to be able to compete. I wanted us to be up there in the upper right quadrant. I wanted it to taste homemade and have a clean label. And what I found is that there really weren't any brands doing that. After I studied the competition, I wanted to be able to understand the category. And so I specifically cookies. And so what I learned about this category is that cookies are really active in the baking space. So 2/3 of adults have either made cookies or bought cookies in the last 3 months. And so I was looking at this, as I was looking at this, I was thinking to myself, okay, if I want to be in a place where a lot of people are active. Number two, consumers look at cookies as a manageable indulgence, meaning that because of the perceived portion control, cookies are small, they're pre-portioned in comparison to cakes or brownies. The consumers feel like it is a more manageable indulgence to them. Time savings. I wanted to offer, consumers are looking for a time savings. They're looking for something that's easy, and they want to go with brands that are going to save them time in the long run and be very easy to make. And then ease. What was interesting is, a lot of the demographic that is shopping this section is young women, young adult women. And when they shop an indulgent category like this, they are most focused on saving time, having fun, and having a satisfying experience. So all of these things together is what then went into how I was going to position myself on the shelf. So I've split this category up into 3 different groups of products, what I call value. So that's where the national brands sit. Those are those legacy brands that everybody knows. Attribute specific products, so products that are gluten-free, paleo, keto. Like I said, there's quite a big group of brands that are offering these attribute specific products. And interestingly, this is where most of the innovation has taken place over the last 5 years. And then the third group is premium. What I found is that there are very few brands that are offering a premium product that appeals to the masses. And so this was the void that I wanted My Better Batch to fill. I also wanted to ensure that My Better Batch was easy to make, saving customers time, was versatile, and ultimately it was a fun brand that people could get behind. So all of our products are made simple. They have clean, simple, non-GMO ingredients. These are ingredients like you would find in your very own kitchen pantry. Our products are non-GMO project verified, so you might be familiar with that butterfly seal that you see on some products. This was really important to me to be able to launch with because the competitive product in this space does not have that. I wanted to fill these products with premium ingredients. So our mixes have tons of large semi-sweet chocolate chunks and natural colored candy sprinkles. I didn't want consumers to feel like we were skimping on anything. They are full of those premium ingredients. Like I keep saying, I wanted this to be easy. This can be prepared. All of these mixes are prepared in 3 easy steps. I like to call this product better than homemade. So these cookies taste like they're homemade without the hassle of baking them from scratch. That's what I consider better than homemade. The fact that these have 3 simple preparation steps. They have 2 ingredients that you add and 1 bowl to clean up when you're done making the cookies. The cookies are made for sharing, so it is a 16-ounce box that yields about 16 3-inch round cookies. So that's a pretty big cookie. And our business is woman-owned. That is something we're very proud of and just got our certification for that, which you'll find on the front of the box. Here's the back of the box. So you can see here that each of our mixes, like I said, requires those 2 added ingredients, an egg and softened butter. And as I mentioned, the preparation couldn't be easier. It is mix, scoop, and bake. So I designed these mixes so that they could be great on their own, but I also wanted them to act as a base to be able to make all kinds of different creations. And when you go over to Instagram, you're going to see tons of those ideas over there. So each box includes a secondary recipe. For instance, you're looking at our chocolate chunk cookie mix right now, and there's a recipe for s'mores bliss cookies on the back. And you'll also notice that there is a QR code, so a unique QR code on the back of each box. That QR code is going to take consumers to a video on how to make the cookies. So where I show you step by step how to make the cookies, and then also show you exactly how to make that secondary recipe. Packaging. I really believe that packaging is critical, especially in a category like this. So as I mentioned earlier, when consumers shop that baking aisle, they recognize those legacy brands. When they see red and they see blue, they know Betty Crocker and Pillsbury, at least here in the US market. I chose a bag and a box format versus a stand-up gusseted bag. I wanted something that stood out on the shelf. And stood up on the shelf. I chose bright, vibrant colors so that they would pop off the shelf. Our boxes were designed to create a billboard effect. So you can see those small cookies that are in the upper right and left-hand corner. When they are lined up on the shelf, those cookies fit together. So,
I never noticed that, but yeah, that's smart. That actually
so
creates like a, okay, so,
yeah, I wanted to be, I mean, knowing that we really need to be able to stand out against that competition, I wanted the packaging to look great on its own, but when it was all lined up, I wanted it to have an even bigger effect to really scream to consumers.
huh.
So, and then lastly, I wanted the boxes to look visually appealing. And that is, in the colors that we chose, having that big image on the front. So all of those things came into play as we were designing the box. So real quick, I am just going to give you quickly, how we are set up, how the supply chain and process flow works. So I work with a co-manufacturer to produce these mixes. I don't manufacture these on my own. And so some of you are probably familiar with that process, but we are responsible at My Better Batch. We are responsible for recipe development, the packaging development, setting pricing, innovation, promotional planning, marketing, management of all of our certifications, e-commerce fulfillment, and you can read all of those bullet points there. The co-manufacturer for us plays a really important role. They are doing our ingredient procurement based on our specifications. They are procuring our supplies, so our boxes, the plastic bag that the mix goes in. They have an R&D team that is assisting with some of the innovation. So we come to them with ideas, and oftentimes those ideas are developed in a home kitchen. They are then helping us, their R&D teams, take that innovation and scale it up to a commercialized product, something that can be blended in 2,500-pound batches. They're responsible for blending the mix. They are responsible for packaging the mix, and they are responsible for adhering to all of those food safety regulations, which is a huge benefit to me. And then we will rely on an outside 3PL. That 3PL is not yet set up. So an outside storage to be warehousing our mix for us and shipping on our behalf. And you can see there that 3PL will either ship directly to a retailer or to a distributor that will then ship to a retailer. And then ultimately you'll find it on the retail shelves. The reason that 3PL is not yet set up is because we are very limited in our retail distribution right now. And so we need a few more retail customers to be able to make that work for us from a financial perspective. So right now I do have a warehouse that is in Greensboro. It can hold about a truckload, maybe a little bit more than that of product. And so we are shipping our first retail customers through that Greensboro warehouse. So you better watch out, Dr. Taurus. I might put you to work one of these days. It's nice and close to you.
Sure,
So
yeah.
here is Here's a quick look. We have 4 SKUs. Chocolate Chunk, this is our #1 selling SKU at this point. This is our premium version of a classic chocolate chip cookie. This mix is loaded with pieces of semi-sweet chocolate chunks. You guys are going to get a copy of this presentation, so there's no need for me to walk through all of the different things here. But on this slide, you will see all of the specs, including size, what our suggested retail price is, shelf life, etc., all of the different kinds of certifications that each one of these mixes has. Next is our classic sugar cookie. This mix makes a cookie that is simple, it's sweet, it's buttery. Third is my favorite, which is our double chocolate chip cookie mix. We use a Dutch processed cocoa powder for this mix, which gives it a really rich chocolatey flavor. And then we have mini chocolate chips that are in this mix. And then lastly, our celebration cookie mix. This is our version of a funfetti mix, if you're familiar with that. This cookie has a sweet buttery base, so like our sugar cookie, but then it's full of those natural candy colored sprinkles. So this is where I was excited to get to be able to show progress. As you can see, we've very much been in startup mode. So there has been a lot of work done over the last couple of years. We've mainly focused on getting our product finalized and ultimately getting that product commercialized. This process took a lot longer than I anticipated, but as you can see, we have been able to, I guess focusing more on last year, develop all of those recipes, develop all of the packaging, which you saw, get packaging printed, establish our website, get those social media platforms off the ground, get our certifications in order, which was huge for us and actually was quite a lengthy process. We've established our co-manufacturer. We had a test run done in February of this year where they produced a couple thousand pounds of each mix. That was mainly just to make sure that we everything batched up the right way. Sometimes when you make it in a small bowl in your kitchen and then do it in a much larger size, things are different. So you want to test to make sure that everything translated well to being batched up and scaled. We did all of our costing analysis began and we finalized pricing. We developed our sales deck. We developed our marketing strategy and company voice. This year, we went through another round of raising investor money. So we have raised a little over $1 million to support the company through 2 rounds and have an awesome group of investors. We began our e-commerce sales process in April of this year. So we sell online, which is super exciting. We finalize our broker relationship. So in retail, oftentimes we work with brokers who have established relationships with retailers. So it's really important to have those brokers in place to be able to get access and talk to the retailers that we want to engage with. And so all of those brokers have been set up. We've begun the retail sell-in process. And I'm happy to tell you that our very first retail customer will come on board in December. That is Sprouts. Sprouts is a national natural retailer here in the US that has over 400 stores. So that's really exciting for us. We've run our first production run of 34 pallets, which is about 25,000 pounds of product. We've hired a PR firm to represent us, which is exciting. We still need to focus on getting that 3PL, that outside warehouse and storage and fulfillment complete. And that is really going to depend on getting retail customers set up. We need to establish those retail customers. What's interesting in grocery retail is that most retailers are only looking at product categories 1 time a year, and they have a published review schedule. So for instance, Whole Foods, they are currently in the process of reviewing their category. I couldn't submit any paperwork up until this point to be able to be considered for being on their shelves, but we have been able to submit paperwork for that. They take about a month-long process to review all of that paperwork, and then they start to decide what changes they will make to their shelf. Those changes, although they are made soon, they typically don't get implemented until, a couple months down the road. So it is a very lengthy sell-in process, and we are at the mercy of these retailers' review schedules. So there are a lot that are reviewing their baking category specifically starting in October through January. So the Q4 will be pretty busy for us as we are presenting this to retail customers. And then we need to complete our Amazon setup. That actually will be complete in the next 4 weeks, which is exciting. And our product will be fulfilled by Amazon, which is equally as exciting. So that is kind of an update on our business. I wanted to just talk about one of our biggest challenges. It continues to remain, how can our customer find us? Whether that be online or in retail stores, which is why our time and attention right now is focused on marketing specifically. We've developed the brand and the products, we've commercialized those products. Now we need customers to find them and ultimately buy them. And so marketing is really where I am focused right now. Here's a couple different ways that we are currently marketing My Better Batch. So through our social platforms, so our followers and engagement continue to see triple-digit growth, which is really exciting. We post on these platforms 3 to 4 times a week, and we work really hard to make sure we're creating seasonally relevant content that's appealing to our audience. PR and communications. So we've hired that new PR agency and they have hit the ground running, which is really exciting. We were featured in a piece in Austin, Texas, a back to school piece, which was really neat to see. A press release, our first press release, really introducing the brand, went out last week, and we're starting to get a little bit of traction on that. They're also going to assist with an affiliate marketing program, which just kicked off. They're going to help us with engaging influencers. So this is all stuff that we haven't done up until this point, but is going to be really critical for us. Events and trade shows, most of these are done to support our retail customers. So we began attending some shows, not showing at these shows, but attending this year. Next year in 2025, we will likely participate in some of these industry trade shows. We also will start.
Lindsay, can I interject a comment in case students are not paying attention here? I hope they are, but so this section is extremely important. I know for you guys, one of the challenges that you will be working on is developing the marketing strategy for the company. And so listen carefully to what the company already is doing, how they're doing it, because many of you will be recommending things that the company already is doing. So listen attentively and learn from this specific section of the presentation so you do not reinvent the bicycle, so to speak. So you only offer something new, something the company doesn't know yet.
No, that's great. Yeah, and I think, in each one of these areas, we are really just scratching the surface of what we can do. And so I am looking for ways, and we'll talk about that, but looking for ways that we can continue to develop in these areas beyond what we've done now. So no, thank you for pointing that out. So the fourth way that we are marketing is we've budgeted funds to support our brand once they're in retail distribution. So this is achieved through retailer-specific marketing programs, their social media, email marketing, but also in-store displays, events, demos, promotions. So that's a really important way. Well, it's a must to be able to be successful in the retail channel. So that takes us to that marketing focus, like you just said. So last year when I participated in X Culture, we had an overwhelming number of groups participate, as we've already talked about. And in that project, I was focused in a very broad scope, asking questions around competitive landscape, e-commerce strategy, promotional recommendations, innovation, and just general marketing strategy. This year, I am focused solely on marketing strategy. So there are a series of slides, and these will be distributed to you. And these are the areas that go through each one of these 5 areas in detail with questions. But here are the 5 areas that I'm focused on this time around. Research of the competition's presence on social media. Strategy in development. So just continuing to develop that strategy and make sure that if we do need to make changes to what we are currently doing, we do that and do that quickly. E-commerce optimization and a competitive analysis also on some of the competition that is selling online. Really digging into influencer and affiliate marketing, and then public relations. So I am thrilled to be participating again in this project. Happy to answer any questions that you have. But like I mentioned, each one of these areas has a slide that outlines exactly the questions that we're looking to answer this time around.
Yeah. And we do have questions. So Diana Wilson is asking about your exit plan. So is your plan to eventually go public, or are you planning to stay with the company for the
So
foreseeable future?
that's a really great question. It's so hard to talk about an exit plan when I feel like I haven't even entered yet. So, but it's a great question and very valid. So my goal is to build this company and ultimately sell it. How long that looks, I don't know the answer to that, but a sale of the company either to a private equity firm or a strategic partner would probably be more likely than to take the company public.
Okay. So there is also a comment from Diana Wilson. I want to mention I purchased a box of chocolate chunk and want to share how impressive the packaging was. I was glad I ordered your cookies and felt the price and shipping was worth it. I did want to ask, the non-GMO verified stamp was replaced with the words made with non-GMO ingredients. So I'm not sure
Yes.
if you have a comment
No,
on
that's a
that.
great call. Well, thank you for supporting the brand. I really appreciate it. So, no, you're exactly right. So, when I had to print this first round of packaging, we did not have those certifications. They were pending, both the woman-owned business certification and the non-GMO. I was super confident that we would get them, which is why you see the icon there. But both of those icons have been replaced with the actual seal. And so that packaging was just printed to support this production run. So yes, that is there.
And then you're here, you can always unmute your microphone and ask the questions yourself. All right, I have a bunch of questions here. So first about the company and then about the founder. So
Okay.
about the company, so geographically, the United States only so far, but the plans are open to go international. Is that correct?
Yes, and yes, that is correct. I think right now we need to be focused on the US market just to be able to build out a base. I do think the fact that we are offering a non-GMO product does make our company it is an advantage for us in being able to sell in other countries. From what I've heard and
Yeah.
what we know of the competition, those legacy brands are not non-GMO. And so, there are ways for a small business like ours to be able to be successful in places that they're not, simply because we've chosen to have an ingredient profile that we have.
Yeah, yeah. And in some countries, especially in Europe, those kinds of things are more regulated. Labeling requirements are different. So for you, that would be a big advantage. Another one, can you explain to us how it works with retailers? So I know your cookies now appear, or you're talking to some of the retailers. So is it difficult to get on the shelves of the major retail chains? Do you just show up and say, hey, Costco, would you sell my cookies? Or it's a difficult process? And so what are the hurdles on the way to getting, to appearing on the shelves of those stores?
So it is a difficult process and it is a lengthy process. Like I mentioned earlier, in order for our product to get onto the shelf, something must come off the shelf. And so those decisions are not taken lightly. Those category managers who are making those decisions, they are counting on the brands that they put on the shelf performing very well. And if they're not performing well, they're wanting to replace them with things that do. And so, I've often said that although it is a hard process and a lengthy process, the easy part is getting on the shelf. The harder part is staying on the shelf. But kind of going back to your original question, it is long and it is hard. And, in a category like this, there is limited space. And so it will be an uphill battle. That is why we had to come up with those points of differentiation where we can sit in front of a buyer and we can confidently say, you don't have products like this on your shelf today. And let me show you why ours is unique. And let me show you why it belongs and that there is a need for it for your consumers.
So you personally manage those negotiations, or you have a person for that?
So I am doing most of that right now. We do use the broker partners. So the outside broker partners, they act as kind of an extension of our sales team. And so they are helping those brokers are in place to be able to help manage those relationships. For instance, we have a broker that only works with Whole Foods. They know Whole Foods inside and out. They understand how their systems work, their portals work, the new item process. They understand how their promotional calendars work, how promotions get established and published. And so we find that it is really helpful to find those broker partners that are in place to be able to do business with these retailers. It is very hard to go in as just Lindsay, part of the company, and be able to be successful. We really have to leverage those relationships.
I see, I see. There is a question from Marie about the marketing strategy. Should we focus on the US or foreign markets? And so before Lindsay answers the question for my better batch, so for most companies, they are open to global or to other markets as well. And so your job is not so much to focus on marketing, or not only on marketing. You first need to identify the most promising new markets. It could be the United States, for example, for this company, or it could be maybe something else. And then for that market that you think is the most promising new market, that's the one that for which you develop the marketing strategy, basically the full market entry strategy. So for my better batch, should they focus on the US only, or are you open, or should they consider other markets as well?
I think the US market is the most important to me right now, but I think there are opportunities, like I said, beyond the US market. And so while I feel like we need to be focused on the US, I am open to hearing suggestions and ways, especially when it comes to some of the competitive things that you're doing. If there are brands that are international, sold in other countries, that are performing really well, or have a strategy where, online, they have tons of followers and they're doing something special and we need to have them on our radar, I'm very open to that.
Another question, how does it work with investing? So you do have private investors. Was it your personal connections that helped you identify and convince those investors to invest in your company? Did you go through some sort of an accelerator, incubator, whatever other channels? So, and then do you still need more investors? And if so, how do you plan to go about it?
So both the first and second round, so the rounds that we've completed, have all been personal relationships. It has been a combination of successful business people who have started, sold, run companies, and a combination of industry-specific folks that I have worked with over the years that have specifically skills in sales and marketing. I wanted to, when this product was developed and we had the cookie mix in hand, I wanted us to be able to deploy very quickly. And like I said, we utilize those broker partners for relationships, but equally as important are just relationships that people have, that some of them are even personal relationships. They golf with so-and-so. And so, you got to take advantage of that as well. So combination, but of industry specific and then just business folks, but all folks that I know at this point. And then, are we going to be looking to raise additional funding? I would imagine we will at some point. I don't quite know when that will be. We are pretty good for right now. But the cost of doing business and gaining distribution is pretty high. Grocery stores, they oftentimes charge you for what they call slotting. So if you are going to get 3 items on the shelf, they are going to charge you. I've seen it where they'll say you need to give us 1 case per SKU per store. Well, if you get into a Kroger and you get into 1,000 stores with 3 SKUs, that's 3 cases of product in all 1,000 stores. That adds up really quickly. Whole Foods is the same way. They require you to give them slotting. And so just the cost of it is expensive it's expensive to get started in this business. Yeah. So yeah, it's not on my radar right now to raise any more money, but something that may come down the line.
Good to know. Outsourcing. So you talked about all kinds of functions, from devising the recipes all the way to packaging, marketing, sales. So which of those functions do you do in-house, so to speak? And I know in the early stages, company founders do pretty much everything by themselves. But at some point, obviously, you hire some external help. So what do you do, or your team does, or people on salary in your company do? And what do you outsource to external providers?
So right now, I am the only one being paid by the company. Everybody else who is engaged is done so as an outside contractor. So, and most of those are more of a marketing function than anything else. That is why, and so marketing, we've got some folks on the outside that are helping, but I don't have anybody I don't have anybody other than myself being compensated by the company on our payroll. From a sales perspective, that is why with a lean team, my background is selling, and so that is an advantage that I have, and I have had relationships with a lot of these national retailers, and I have those investors on board that have some of those relationships. So that was very strategic. But then having these broker partners, that is why that was so important to me, that we have an extension of me. I can't be everywhere at the same time and know all the ins and outs of all of those retailers I want to be in. But that's why it was really important to me to find the right partners to be able to help represent our brand in front of the retailers. And so sales right now, I would say that function is kind of outsourced, but I'm driving the messaging, and I'm part of those conversations when we do get FaceTime with retailers. Outsourcing financial stuff right now, just, it's pretty minor accounting and things like that. So that probably, and then operations is virtually outsourced to the co-man. So right now, that is kind of what I would kind of look at those as the big four: sales, marketing, finance, and ops. But no one internally on the team that is doing those functions other than myself.
Now, there is a very academic question from Jerome. I'm not sure if you are into those kinds of analyses. So he's asking if you have done the Pastel analysis, and if yes, what the results are. And for those of you who are watching who don't know what Pastel is, it's basically the analysis of the company's competitive position and market position based on the political, economical, social, technological, environmental, and legal factors. And I'm not sure if people do that kind of analysis outside of the academia, but in academia, we love all those SWOT analyses, Pastel analysis, and so on and so on. I'm not sure if you've ever engaged in this more academic exercise rather than business.
I have not.
Yeah. Well, and for you students, that's an opportunity to conduct that analysis and maybe identify the factors of risk and opportunities and, major influences. So, Jerome, that's an opportunity for you to impress the company with your in-depth analysis that hopefully will lead to some interesting insights. We are almost out of time, but there is one more question that I want to ask. So we were at several conferences this summer with the students, and we organized a bunch of career development workshops. And so one question that comes up again and again and again, and you, Lindsay, would be best positioned to answer it, and that is, should I take sort of the corporate path or the entrepreneurial path upon graduation? And you've done both. You're one of those rare instances when you have enough experience in the corporate world and now a lot of experience being an entrepreneur. So what are the pros and cons? Any regrets that you left your corporate life and went into this extremely hectic, risky, and probably stressful life of an entrepreneur? So what would be your insights, advice for students who are trying to decide which path they should embark upon?
I think it's a great question, and I think it's a very difficult question to answer because there are so many factors that play a role, and it really is I don't know. I guess many different factors play a role. Like I said, I don't have regrets to go and answer that question. Do I have regrets going down this path of starting the business and putting my money on the line? And no, at this point, I have no regrets. Are the days difficult? And sometimes do I question what in the world I'm doing and if I should be doing it? Absolutely, I do. But I think the days of seeing opportunity outweigh the days of saying, oh my gosh, what did I do? I do think, my particular path of going down more of a corporate. I mean, Creative Snacks was a startup. We started with nothing, grew the company to over $60 million in sales, and then sold it. So yes, at the end, it was kind of corporate, and then the kind experience was corporate, but that was very much a startup, and it could have gone either direction. Although it wasn't my money on the line, I had a lot on the line, and being able to support my family and everything. So I think, I mean, everybody's story is different. My experiences really have helped guide where I'm going right now. And like I said earlier, I mean, my education is not in business. This has been learned the hard way. But I do think kind of those failures also have helped to guide certainly this process. So, I think there is value in working for a large organization at some point in your career. I think it's good to, I learned through that process. I learned more about myself probably than I did about like industry specific information. And I learned that I don't belong in a large corporate environment. And that's not a place where I felt like I could really thrive. Was it a safe? Was there safety in staying at a place like that? Absolutely. Was there opportunity in staying at a place like that? Absolutely. But my desire to be able to do something more was greater than, the gain that I would have had with financial stability and just, job security. So, for me, it was beneficial to see a little bit of all of these different pictures to be able to guide what I wanted to do next and take this risk. I don't know that that's necessary for everyone, but there is something really exciting about this entrepreneurial journey, and scary at the same time. And so, there's a lot of emotions. This is a very long-winded way of saying like no regrets. I'm excited to be traveling down this path. Is it hard? Will it be hard? Will it probably get harder? I think it will. But ultimately, the path that I took to get here, I don't know that I would change it in any way.
So another related question always is, once I get my degree, I really want to start a company. I will start a company at some point. Should I start a company right away? Or would it be beneficial to get a corporate job for a few years just to learn how this stuff works? Or should I not even lose any time and get right into the entrepreneurial path?
Well, I think it depends on what you're doing. I think for me, I don't know that I would have been a successful entrepreneur had I come right out of college, and tried to do something. I think there's value in seeing how others do things and having some of those experiences that are really critical in making sure that your path is kind of designed the right way. For me, I don't think that I would have been successful getting my degree and taking this path. For me, there has been a lot of value in learning through others.
And then another question that comes up in that context, and I promise that's the last one.
That's okay.
When you start your own company, do you need to have some sort of backup resources? Like, for example, your spouse has a steady corporate job and you take the risk. So if you fail, the family can still pay the bills. Or if you are single, if you don't have that kind of support safety net from your family, is it still advisable to put all your eggs essentially in one basket and potentially lose everything and even end up maybe owing to the bank or to the investors? So would that be a consideration, or it's really not the main factor when deciding if you want to start a business or not?
Well, again, I think it depends on the person. I don't know if this group has listened to the podcast How I Built This, but on that podcast, a lot of times they're featuring food companies, and there are plenty of entrepreneurs in this particular space who put it all on the line. And I don't think I could do that personally.
What's the success rate? What portion of them fail to ever make money to pay sort of their salary, so to speak?
It's high.
Like
I
probably more than half never
Oh
actually.
yeah. Oh, probably so. Yeah. And a lot of times what they're saying is the first idea doesn't take. It takes the second or third to be able
Wow.
to really do something meaningful. I am a single mom. It is important for me to make sure that I can keep a roof over my kids' head, keep
Right,
them in the
right. Yeah.
school that they're at, make sure that they're fed, and make sure that they have the things that they need. And so for me, I can't put everything on the line, which is why I did choose to bring investors on. I could have chosen to put everything that I have into this company. I don't think for me that would have been very smart, not because I didn't believe in myself or believe in what we could do, but because I couldn't personally take on all of that risk myself.
But
So
with investments also, like at least I met some of, or at least one of your investors. So he has lots of
yeah.
experience, connections. It seems to me that in addition to the investors' money, you also get the investors' support, connections, experience, because they are literally invested. I mean, not just, figuratively, literally invested in your company. So it's in their interest for you to succeed, right? And
Absolutely.
I suspect you kind of get more than just the money when you get investors, especially if they're smart. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is why, I mean, that's why I was very strategic in bringing on the partners that I did, because I wanted to make sure that each person brought something to the table that could be useful, that a skill or that I didn't have, or something that I didn't have that we would be able to use. And again, I mean, you kind of going back to a couple of questions ago when you asked about working corporate or working in other jobs before going and becoming an entrepreneur. Had I not done that, I wouldn't have had this incredible group of people willing to take a chance on my company. And so that was, I mean, that was absolutely necessary for me. And in a lot of ways, my investor group, I think, is pretty unique in the fact that I didn't really have to sell them very hard on what we were doing. I needed to sell them, and I didn't even really need to sell them hard on myself, but what they invested in was me. It wasn't necessarily Chemix. They invested in me because they know me and have worked with me, and they see opportunity in this venture, and they know what I am going to give to this company. So those relationships are super important to me, and I would not have had those had I not worked in some other places to be able to work alongside or for some of these folks.
And I hear that again and again from investors. They say ideas are easy. Many people foolishly believe that as long as they have an idea for a new product business, that's 90% of success. The reality is that no, the idea is probably not even 1%. So we come up with ideas all the time. Execution, that's where good ideas die, so to speak, or thrive. And so finding the person who is capable to execute that idea, that's the difficult task. So when they see someone who is capable, they say, I don't care that much about the idea. If not this one, the next one will be successful. So we need to find a person that is capable of executing it well. And so again, knowing you now and knowing some of your investors, I can totally see how they believe more, not so much more in you than in the idea, but where you matter to them perhaps even more than the idea. Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nicole, you had a question, and then I saw you raised your hand. So if you're still here, if you want to ask it, I can read the question. But I think she just raised a hand, but then disappeared. So, but she was asking, what would you like them to focus on when it comes to the marketing section? So what are the most important marketing related questions the students should be working on?
We didn't go through all of the questions under each one of these main areas. I don't know that there's any one section that is more important than another. And I was pretty detailed in the questions that I asked to be able to get the information that I need, that I really am focused on. So I don't know that there's any one specific area, but as Nicole, is that who asked the question?
Yeah, Nicole Steller.
Nicole, once all of these questions are distributed and you look through the detail, if you have specific questions on kind of hierarchy or rank, why don't you reach out to me and I might be able to do a better job. It's just hard when we're looking at this in kind of a 30,000-foot level.
Yeah, from my end, I will say I haven't read hundreds, if not thousands, of the reports. On the marketing side, the specifics are more important than, again, the general ideas. Too many teams say things like advertise on Facebook or advertise on Instagram. I mean, obviously the company thought about that. So simply saying advertise on social media, useless. I mean, we know that. Saying things like, for example, well, advertise on Facebook and here is a sample ad, I guess that's more useful. But the best answers come from the really from the details, how often, what's the theme, what's the audience, maybe even if it's a less usual channel, how much will it cost, how to get connected. Like, for example, if you say use influencers, many of you will say work with influencers. Well, identify the specific influencers, names, maybe contact them, check out how much they charge, or how they work with their influencees, I guess, or clients, I guess, in this case.
Brand, yep.
Yeah, so give all those details. So basically do the research for the client. simply saying advertise on TV or advertise or work with influencers, that's too generic. I mean, obviously the company thought about that. So it's those specific details that may be valuable. Maybe even, as I said, conduct some sort of market studies. If you do have a mock-up ad for your client, well, show it to 5, 10 friends, record their reactions. Maybe if each of the team members shows it to 5, 10 friends, all of a sudden now you have a focus group. So now you may have different types, and you can say, well, this one was perceived favorably by 80%, this one by only 60%, or something like that. So that's where it becomes really valuable. So that's what I would tell you or recommend that you focus on as you develop your marketing strategy.
Yeah, it's great. And what I did a poor job of also pointing out to you guys, I mean, social media has been, I'm too old to be doing this stuff. I'm the one posting, I'm the one recording in my kitchen, just as you guys are watching all these videos. So it's okay to laugh. I am a lot of the times the one editing, and I am too old to really know what is going to work. And I can admit that, and I'm okay with that. Sometimes my son laughs at me, but I'm giving it a shot, and I feel like it's really important. And the reason I feel like it's really important is because I feel like it's something that our competition is not doing a great job of. So yes, if you go on to, as you're doing your research, you're going to go on to Betty Crocker's Instagram and you're going to see that there's 600,000 people following Betty Crocker. But then when you look at how often is Betty Crocker, how often are they publishing, posting? What are they posting? And what is their engagement like? Of those 600,000 people that are following them, how many people are actually liking their posts? And what is interesting is you're going to find that our level of engagement is very similar to what you see of a brand that size. And so there's something there. And that's why I am putting all of this time and effort into social media, because I feel like we have an opportunity to be able to fill a void that, and do a better job. I have a TikTok shop set up. We have had a few sales to the TikTok shop. Again, I am too old to know all the ins and outs and the best way to be able to be successful there. But to understand and get ideas from you is super important. We have an Instagram shop set up. Again, these TikTok shop and Instagram shop, the competition is not doing that. How do we take advantage of some of these things that we are able to do because we're small and nimble and flexible and, gritty, and that the big companies just simply can't do? And how can we win customers by doing some of those things?
Yeah, I actually just did go to Betty Crocker's Instagram. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's like 200, sometimes 3, 4, 5 comments. Some may have more. So
Yeah.
it's definitely less than 1% of the followership, much less than that. So
And
yeah,
I don't know why that is. Like, there's many, many reasons for that. Is it their content? Is it just that I mean, we all pay to get people to subscribe. At the end of the day, like, that is how numbers are really generated. And so it's like they probably put a lot of money behind it and got a lot of
very
people, but
possible. Much of that could be artificial paid followers, so to
yeah.
say. Yeah.
So, but just things like that. I mean, this is an area, social media specifically is an area that I feel like if we can do it better and we can be in places that others are not, we really have an opportunity to get to our target demographic and to be able to be successful.
Yeah. All right, well, we are out of time. In fact, a little overtime. Thank you so much, Lindsay. So we'll share
Thank
the
you.
recording with everyone. And so, yes, if you have any questions down the road, just send them to admin@xculture.org and we'll forward them to the company if we don't know the answer. Diana, you wanted to say something?
Office hours. I know that I asked that earlier and you were going to establish them. Can you share that now?
Yes, so my plan is to offer office hours on Tuesdays at 1 o'clock Eastern time. So I'm going to need a little bit of help from.
Yeah, we can help with that.
Getting that
My
set
worry
up.
again is that I know how busy entrepreneurs are, so I'm almost advising them not to lock themselves or not to overpromise, because again, but then at the same time, yes, if you would like to have like a specific time, maybe once a week or every other week, that obviously would be helpful. So that there will be a lot of questions, and that's perhaps a more efficient way to engage than any other approach. So
Yeah, and I found last time I did this, and I found that especially at the beginning of the project, there were a lot of people that came on to the
Mhm.
calls to ask questions, and it
Okay.
was just a really easy way to be able to tackle questions that a lot of people had, at the same time.
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah, if you are willing to do that, we definitely appreciate that very
Do I
much.
need
And
to
again,
send do I need to send you a link for
yeah,
that, or
yeah, so it's
okay,
probably best if you set it up, whatever system you use, Zoom, Meets,
okay.
Teams, and we'll just share it with the students. So this way everybody will know where to find you when if they have questions.
And then in this presentation, which will get distributed, my contact information is on there. What I've found is that people are finding me all over the place. They're finding me and DMing me on social media. I'm getting emails through the website to like a generic inbox. If we can consolidate that, and if you could just shoot me an email, that probably would be the easiest way for me to keep up with everything. It's just hard for me to, sometimes I'm like, I know I saw that question. I don't know where it is. It's
Yeah, question on Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, whatever
yeah.
other people. Yeah. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. Everyone have a nice and productive week. And so the recording will be distributed later, probably today.
All right, great. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.